Welcome to the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer. Each week on their show, they help authors create books that transform our lives and imaginations. Through radio excellence, they create a unique community resource, one that promotes, connects, and fosters a sense of well-being. They serve listeners by providing outlets for their creative skills and energies, and they help them flourish in the competitive marketplace. Their weekly show provides intros, writing spotlights, helps you in promoting your book, your writing, your publishing, your marketing tidbits, and much more. Okay, audience, here's the Author's Edge radio show with Guy L. Freer.
Welcome to Author's Edge Show. Join us for lively conversations with writers, publishers, songwriters, illustrators, and artists diving into the art of storytelling. Catch us every Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. on KWRH FM 929 and KXOK FM 102.9, or stream online at KXOK102.com, KWRH929.com, and via free apps, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn. The show also airs nationwide Monday to Friday at 8 a.m. on My Genre Radio Network. Missed an episode? Find us anytime on SoundCloud, YouTube, or at authorsedge.org. Now that's authorsedge.org. And welcome back to the studio, everyone, and welcome to Author's Edge. I am your host, Guy L. Freer. And today we have an exciting guest joining us, Brian Ketcher. He grew up in St. Peters and graduated from Fort Zumwalt, South Mexico. South. Oh, it'd be good if I could read it, well, wouldn't it?
Go Bulldogs.
Yeah, go Bulldogs. There we go. Back when it was the new school, attended Mizzou and spent 3 years in Mexico, where he wrote his first book. His young adult novel, Almost Perfect, was the 81st most challenged and censored book of the past decade, which we will talk about. According to the American Library Association, Ketcher now lives in Moberly with his wife and daughter and works as an elementary school librarian. So before the books came the bus rides. Now let's hear back to where it all began and the moment you caught the writing bug. What was St. Peter's like growing up?
When I was born in St. Peter's, and it was just its own tiny little town, very distinct from St. Louis. It was, you may notice the big cathedral out there. That was pretty much the only thing out there.
Yeah.
Where I say South was the new high school, and that was the big thing. There were 2 whole high schools in the district, and I was that one of the first classes to go through there.
Oh.
So, people always say, I guess you always wanted to be a writer. And that is absolutely not true. If somebody had come to me when I was 15 and said, hey, why don't you write something for fun? I would have said, why don't I do some math for fun while I'm at it? No way. When I was a teenager, the thing I wanted to do at night was like, hey, let's go get some Taco Bell and then go out and break something. I never wrote a single creative thing till I was about 25. And that's been a big regret for me, is that I didn't start writing much earlier.
Well, when I was 15, my mother had bought me a pair of go-go boots, and I wanted to be a go-go dancer.
Awesome.
So, let's just think about that. Did Fort Zumwalt South influence your writing at all?
Yes, I wouldn't have thought so at the time, but my very first book, Playing with Matches, essentially is...
And did you bring that with you? Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Playing with Matches. Oh, look at that. Playing with Matches. Can you see that? There we go. Playing with Matches.
It is set in a fictional version of my high school with fictional versions of my teachers and my friends and my parents. And whenever anybody I knew back then reads it, they say, oh, yeah, that was I totally recognize it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so how do they feel about that?
I remember looking at something online. Somebody said, "Wow, somebody from our high school wrote a book." Uh, so it's neat, and people will say, "Oh, that was totally me, wasn't it?" And I'd say, "Yeah, that was totally you."
And you're proud of it?
Yeah.
So what kind of student were you really in school?
What kind of? It's funny. My photo is now in the Fort Zumwalt Hall of Fame there,
Ooh.
and I was the kid who was always carving the anarchist symbol into every surface in the school. One time when I was a senior, me and some friends stole a door. I was a.
You were one of those.
I was one of those. I was a smart kid, but not a good student. I never really applied myself. I had the potential to be a straight A student, and I was perfectly happy with B minuses.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand those. Where were you always a storyteller though?
I would say yes. I like to I like to tell jokes. I like to relate stories. I remember when I was a senior, my creative writing teacher, hello, Mrs. Barbin, if you're listening, we had to do a poetry notebook, and she sent it back with -5 points. And she said, "Brian, every single poem here is about farting and pooping and bodily functions, and you cannot do that." Well, years later, she invited me to speak to her English class, and I brought that paper with me, and she said, "Well, how about that? You proved me wrong."
What books first made you love stories?
It was boy, that's a good question. My mother, when I was very little, she realized she had not given birth to a future football star, so she would always take me and my sister to the library and would read to us constantly, and it just got me really into a love of reading. And I don't know why that never translated into a love of writing till much later. When I when I was in middle school and high school, there was no real young adult literature at the time. People considered teenagers to be older adults, so the books for or older children. So the books were very preachy. It was the boy smoked marijuana and he died. So I just went straight to adult books.
Right.
And
Well, yeah, so did I.
Yeah, I find a lot of readers of a certain age, it was just straight from Sweet Valley High to Animal Farm or whatnot.
Right, yeah. So, or Edgar Allan Poe with
Exactly,
Gold Bug or whatever. So then you went off to Mexico. You graduated high school.
I graduated high school.
And you graduated college.
And what I really did not want to do was work. I had never had a job that I couldn't walk away from with no regrets, and I had a teaching degree, and so I thought, you'll see the world. You know, my dad earned the all expenses paid trip to Vietnam when he was a young man, and I didn't want to do that, but I did want to travel, and so I went to Waterloo, Illinois, where they had this overseas recruitment festival. And where foreign English language schools would hire people. And somebody from Pachuca, Mexico said, "Hey, you want to come down here?" And I said, yeah, well, why not? So I just chucked everything and spent 3 years down in Mexico. And teaching English. And, my first day there, all throughout high school, I took 3 years of Spanish, never paid attention. And I thought, when am I ever going to use this? Not knowing in the future I would be standing in a Mexican hardware store, desperately wishing I knew how to say toilet plunger in Spanish. I had this class of 25 Mexican kindergartners who spoke no English, and I had almost no Spanish. And they were talking to me and they wanting to tell me things and crying. And I had no idea how to communicate with them. And I thought, wow, I signed a 2-year contract. Maybe I should have thought about this a little bit.
Oh, that must have been absolutely hilarious.
Oh yeah, I was laughing. But fortunately, children at that age learn a lot quicker than adults at my age, so they picked up English so fast, and I picked up Spanish much slower. But those were some of my greatest teaching years. Those kids, they were like little sponges. They were speaking in sentences by Christmas. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience, and I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah. You loved-
in Mexico was that city located?
It's near Mexico City.
Okay.
Okay. And you spent 3 years?
Yes, 2 years in Pachuca and another year in Puebla, which is south of Mexico City.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you decided to come back to the States.
I got to the point where I thought, if I don't leave now, I'm never going to leave. This is, as the country music song says, this is feeling more and more like home. And I decided I needed to come back or just stay there forever.
And stay there forever.
Yeah.
So then you came back to.
I went to the Mexican school year goes through July. So by the time I came back, most teaching positions had been filled. But there was one school north of Columbia. It's called Rennick. This is a one building district. They do not have a high school, gravel parking lot. They needed a fourth grade teacher, and they hired me right up. And so I taught fourth grade for a year there. And then the librarian retired, and I took over her job. And then I was hired on in Moberly, and I've been a elementary librarian in Moberly for the past 19 years.
Okay. All right. So then while in Mexico, you decided to write a book.
I decided to write a book. My
And how did-
girlfriend at the time, she said, "I'm moving to Germany. Adios." And I thought, so I thought, okay, I'm
Or I'll Peter say.
whatever. But I said, okay, I'm a bummed out American in Mexico. What do I do? Either I write a book or I start drinking heavily. And I thought I can do both. So I just sat down on my laptop and I thought, okay, well, they always say, write what you know. If
So
you're
you know broken hearts.
I know broken hearts. If you're an athlete, you write about the big game. If you're a soldier, you write about war. I thought, what am I an expert at? I know what it's like to be in high school and not be able to get a date. So I will write about that. And I just
And so that's this book.
that's Playing with Matches. It was just I just totally set in my high school, my town, my friends, my teachers, and I just started cranking it out. And I wandered back to the U.S. And one day, as I was working on my laptop, I hit that period key, and I thought, "Holy cow! I have written an entire book. What do I do next?" I had no idea how a book magically went from your laptop to the library shelves or whatever. So I joined a writers group in Columbia. And I said, I wrote a whole book, and they all read it, and they said, yeah, start over. They said, your characters are interchangeable. You never describe settings. Your plot trajectory is all over the place. Brian, if you're a serious writer, just go back to square one and rewrite this. And up until now, it had just been kind of a hobby. And I thought, am I a serious writer? And I thought, yeah, I guess I do take this seriously. So I wrote the whole thing. And I showed it to them again, and they said, it's not as bad as it was last time. And that's high praise coming from them. I've been with them 20 years, and I never would have been published without their help. And I thought, okay, what do I do now? So I went to the library, and I got this big, huge book called Writer's Market, 2003, I think it was. And it had the names and addresses of every publisher and agent in the United States, Canada, and Great Britain. And I sent a letter to every single one of them that said they published young adult stuff. And, back nowadays it's all email, but back then you had to print it out. And
you had to have it was paper.
It was paper. And and then you wait. That's one of the hardest parts about being a writer is the waiting game. You wait and wait. And then one day you open your mailbox and there's the self-addressed stamped envelope. And you know it's the big rejection, but you open it anyway and it's, "Dear author, It's never your name. Dear author, thank you for your submission. Unfortunately, it does not meet our needs at this time. Please consider us in the future. Sincerely, some bozo. And my wife will tell you what a joy I was to live with during that time, because you put
So
your
how
heart
ma-
and soul.
How many rejections did you get?
It was a lot. It was more than 20. It was just very frustrating, and it's hard. But you also know giants like Vonnegut also went through the same thing.
Absolutely.
All it takes is one.
That's all you need.
So I thought, okay, nobody ever gets their first book published, time to move on. But the last place I thought to send it was a contest for Random House, and I sent it to them, and I didn't hear back from them so long. I thought, okay, they must have not even bothered to tell me no thanks.
Right.
But it was May, and I'm a teacher, and I was at my work computer, and I got an email from an editor with Random House, and she said, you didn't win, but I think this book has potential. I'm going to send you some suggestions, and if you'd like to rewrite it, I'd love to take a look at it again. Huge break. I thought, okay, summer is coming. I am going to absolutely dedicate the summer to rewriting this book. Nothing is going to distract me. 1 week later, my wife comes up to me and says, guess what, honey? You're going to be a father. And I thought, holy cow, now I have 9 months to do this, or it's never going to happen, and I am very distracted. So I rewrote the book. I sent it back to the editor. She said, this is much improved. Do you want to rewrite it again? And I said, oh, golly gee, I would love to rewrite it. And she said, well, congratulations. We're going to publish it. And that's how the first book happened.
Wow. That is a wonderful story.
Thank you.
That is wonderful. So, all right. So now I'm assuming your wife was a big supporter of your
Oh my
writing?
goodness. Yes. Her name is Sandy. She has been my absolute number one backer. If you have a husband who's walking around to the basement screaming at imaginary people, it's a good thing he's a writer. But she is just so patient with me talking to myself and being up all night and trying to meet deadlines. I remember one time she said, Brian, I know you're working on this, so I'm just going to go in the other room and watch TV. And I said, okay, good. What's on? She goes, oh, Ghostbusters. Oh, great, Sandy. Now I want to go watch Ghostbusters. But no, she has just been absolutely wonderful.
So what was the road to publication like? I mean, how did you feel about that whole road?
It is very frustrating. I know so many first-time authors who get hit with rejection and think it's not going to happen. I'm not destined to be an author, so I'm going to give up. And the great thing about writing is it's not an age-limited creative endeavor.
Right.
If you want to be an actor or an athlete or a dancer or a musician or whatever, that's a young person's game. You're not going to break into it older. But writing, you can do it any age.
That's absolutely. So if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Author's Edge every Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. on KWRH929.com and KXOK102.com. And today we're diving into the world of Brian Ketcher, banned books, bold stories, and big heart. Woo-hoo! You have stirred things up with Almost Perfect and landed at number 81 on the banned list. Let's talk about the bold stories you choose to tell. What inspired you to write Almost Perfect? Now, that book is right here, Almost Perfect. Okay.
Is that a recent book?
No, that one came out over 15 years ago. It was my second book. I almost or Playing with Matches came out, and it was nominated for several awards. Another book that came out that year was The Hunger Games, so it did not win several awards, but it did well. And I thought, okay, before people realize I have no idea what I'm doing, I need to write a second book.
Okay.
And, I'm home with a baby, and but I thought I want to write a boy meets girl story that has not been done to death. And I thought, what would happen if a heterosexual boy met the girl of his dreams and then realized she was transgender? How would something like that pan out? And I started cranking it out, and I showed it to my writers group, and they said, Brian, you got to do the research on this if you're going to do this. So I got on the internet and I talked to transgender people, and I said, help me out here. How does this work? What was it like? And man, they told me stories, and what the most common theme was, especially people who grew up in the pre-internet day, was a feeling, I am so absolutely alone. I am the only one in the world who feels like this, and I have no one I can go to and talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to tell this story. It's a story of a kid named Logan, whose girlfriend dumps him. She coincidentally had the same name of the girl who dumped me in Mexico, but don't read anything into that. And he meets a new girl in school. Her name is Sage. They just instantly hit it off, but she turns him down when he asks her out, and eventually she says, I'm transgender. That's not for public knowledge, and he has to think, do I want to still be friends with her? Do I want to be more than friends with her? My editor liked it. I think I am the second YA author to write about a transgender character. It was published. It won the Stonewall Book Award from the American Library Association, which is for LGBTQ books. And I was very surprised about that they did not give it to an LGBTQ author. I was very, very touched. They flew me down to New Orleans to get the award. It was just very exciting. And like all books, it sold and that kind of petered out. But recently, my Google alerts started blowing up, and it was always books challenged in such and such district or such and such library, and my name was there with good authors like Toni Morrison, and I'm thinking, what's the deal with this? And I think what happens is a lot of libraries buy the award winners just every year. They just buy the whole set, and people go to the library and look up LGBTQ books and say, that's the one that's on our hit list. We want it out. So my book just happens to be in a lot of libraries, and people who have not read that book want it gone.
Right. Yeah. They look at the label and they don't think about anything else.
That's exactly what happened to you.
What inspired you to write about the Almost Perfect?
Well, it was just, I wanted something new, something I hadn't seen 1,000 times. And when I just talked to people who grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, who said, I have denied myself my whole life just because there was no counselor, no one I could talk to, no books about this, no internet where I could talk to other people. All I got were a couple of psychology books in the library that said mental illness. It would have been so nice to see something like this in a book. Now there are many, many young adult books with the subject, but back then there really were not.
Yeah. What's your take on rising censorship lately?
That really scares me as both a librarian and an author. I just got back from the annual meeting of the Missouri Association for School Librarians. And unfortunately, the mood was kind of grim. There's a lot of funding being cut and a lot of you are going to toe the line or you're going to lose all your funding. You will take these books out of your collection or we'll shut the doors on you. It's very scary. However, at the same time, if anyone's willing to go to jail for a book, it's a librarian. We are going to have the quietest, most organized protest in history.
Yes. As a matter of fact, Andy Dowdy was talking about it at one of my other interviews, and he was talking about how it's getting scary. It's just really getting scary. You're listening to Author's Edge, your weekend stop for books, stories, and the voices behind them. Catch us every Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. on KWRH FM 929 and KXOK FM 102.9. Today's guest, the one and only Brian Ketcher, a librarian by day, YA author by passion, and proud owner of the spot number 81 on the banned book list, thanks to his unforgettable novel, Almost Perfect. Stick around. We are just getting started. Now, are you an author, publisher, editor, illustrator, songwriter, or artist extraordinaire looking to expand your reach? Advertise on Author's Edge to connect with passionate readers, and industry insiders with engaging interviews, reviews, and discussions. Your book will shine. Why choose us? Reach thousands of book lovers, boost sales and visibility, targeted, impactful ads, and trusted host endorsements. Elevate your presence with Author's Edge. Contact us today at 573-714-1352, where authors and readers meet.
El Potro Restaurant and Market, located at 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland, offers the finest variety of Mexican and Central American groceries and goods. El Potro Restaurant serves authentic Mexican and Central American cuisine, including daily specials, not to mention the best horchata and tastiest margaritas in St. Louis. Open 7 days a week. El Potro, 6920 Manchester Avenue, 1 block east of McCausland.
Merton Services is a heating, air conditioning, and commercial refrigeration business that's been providing exceptional services in St. Louis for over 50 years, and they take pride in providing services and comfort to both residential and commercial customers. With the temperatures rising in the summer and dropping in the winter, your comfort and health can be put in jeopardy. With proper checks and maintenance, Mertens will keep your equipment in top shape. And when it's time to replace your furnace or your air conditioner, they've got you covered. With a wide range of options, Mertens has the perfect HVAC system to fit all of your needs. To find out how the good folks at Merton Services can help you with all of your HVAC needs, contact Merton Services at 314-845-1500. That's 314-845-1500. Merton Services, 314-845-1500.
Jewels on Hampton in St. Louis Hills is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches on site. Jewels on Hampton is a premier jeweler featuring Alvanza's jewel art designs with an exquisite selection of diamonds, semi-precious stone jewelry, and vintage watches. Their expert design team can restyle your jewelry to today's contemporary style. They also do jewelry and watch repair. Need extra cash? Jewels on Hampton is paying some of the highest prices on gold, silver, diamonds, semi-precious colored stones, coins, flatware, and fine watches. Bring in your collectibles and clocks, sports memorabilia, and figurines too. Jewels on Hampton, 4506 Hampton, just 3 blocks south of Chippewa. Call them at 314-752-5000. 314-752-5000. Jewels on Hampton.
And we're back on Author's Edge. Thanks for hanging out with us. And you're tuned in to KWRH FM 929 and KXOK FM 102 every Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. Today we're chatting with Brian Katcher, YA author, librarian, and the man behind Almost Perfect, one of the most talked about and banned books out there. Let's get back into it. Bah. There's a line in Almost Perfect that really hits deep. It feels like the heart of the story. And I want to hear the story behind it. Everyone that had the line, the little thing that everyone that has one line, they swear they'll never cross. The one thing they say they'll never do. Not something serious like I'll never kill anyone or I'll never invade Russia in the winter. Usually it's something less earth-shattering like I'll never cheat on her. I'll never work at a job I hate. I'll never give up on my dreams. We draw the line. Maybe we even believe it. That's why it's so hard when we break that promise we make to ourselves. Sage Hendricks was my line. What inspired that powerful line quote in the context?
Well, thank you very much. That is the opening paragraphs of Almost Perfect. And I guess the story is about Logan from his point of view. When I was growing up, about the worst insult you could ever tell somebody was, "Hey, you're a homosexual," and we'd be like,
Yes.
"No, I'm not. I'm not a homosexual."
Yes.
Well, Logan has fallen for Sage, and then he realizes she was born genetically male, and he goes through that. No, absolutely not. I could never have romantic feelings for somebody like that. But as time goes on and their friendship continues to deepen, he thinks possibly I could. And what does that mean about me? Does that mean I'm gay? Does that mean Sage is really, truly a woman? It was a line he said he would never cross. and yet he crosses it and then some.
Have you ever crossed a personal line?
Oh, that's quite the question. I'm sure I have. I say.
Ouch! Oh, let's keep drinking. Okay.
Thought we weren't supposed to say we were doing that. We all have that moral compass. We like to say we would
Never
compromise. And I've been a teacher for good grief 28 years now, and that is not a job I hate. So I like to say I've because I could have worked in a business or could have God helped me become a principal, but no, I like to think I was true to myself.
Good. Do readers talk about that quote often?
Well, on Goodreads, you can see what people have highlighted from a book, and that's not one of the top ones. No, it's one of my favorite ones. But
I would think it'd be a great one to talk about, because everybody always says, "Oh, I will never do that. Oh, I will never do this, or I'll never do the other thing." I would think that would be something that would be a great way to even start the book when you're teaching it. Have you ever taught the book? Oh, no, you're a librarian, so no.
Well, I'm an elementary librarian, so my kids are too little for that.
Too little.
But it has been taught in classes, and I've been asked to.
I would think this would be a great way to start the book. Have you ever crossed a line that you said you wouldn't do?
Well, thank you.
I would think that would be, because it's like when I would teach Julius Caesar. Do we still kill our leaders?
Ooh, that's quite the take.
That's how I always started it. Yeah. Do we still kill our leaders? And that, boy, everybody wants to get in on that conversation. Yeah. And so it's a great way to start it. Was Sage always meant to be the line?
I think so. I mean, the book is about her, and I have gotten a lot of pushback from this book, both by people who think I shouldn't talk about that subject, and by
I think it's a perfect subject to talk about.
Thank you. And but especially by transgender people who say you completely blew it, and why are you writing about us? But I think they really have a point. Is this my story to tell? And quite frankly, looking back, I really blew some things with it. But I have never had a reader say they didn't like Sage.
But by the same token, that's like saying, no, you can't, like, only women can write women's stories. Only men can write men's stories. I don't know if that's exactly true.
That's a very good point. And it's like, does the world need more stories about straight white men? But at the same time, this morning, my father said, Brian, why don't you write a story about the immigration situation? And I said, because I'm not an immigrant, and I don't really feel that it's my story to tell. It's called Own Voices, and But
didn't your family come here from somewhere?
Ukraine, yeah. But it was my great-grandparents, not me. So
there is a concept of ancestry DNA.
How's that?
Well, that there's a concept out there that says that your lineage, that DNA that comes from your lineage is passed down to you, that it is not overt. It is something that is part of your experience, but it's not like it's in front of you. It's just a part of who you are, so that no matter where you come from, it's still a part of who you are. So even though you were born and raised here, your background is still part of who you are. So you are Ukrainian.
I like that. It's the family story that around the turn of the 20th century, my great-great-grandparents put my great-grandfather on a cattle ship when he was about 12 and said, see ya, it's not safe here.
I mean, it's still a part. It's still a part of who you are. And if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be sitting in this chair.
Very true.
So you are part of that immigrant story.
Aren't we all? Everybody except Native Americans are, yeah.
So, there is something to think about there. Now, the next book I have is the cosplay book, Anna and Zach.
Yes.
Now, which one is that?
It's
one?
that one, the blue one there.
This one?
Yes.
Okay. So we have the improbable theory of Anna and Zach.
All right.
Okay. Now, tell me about that. What inspired Anna and Zach?
Well, my editor, she said, have you ever read Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist by David Levithan, which is about a couple of really cool kids who over the course of one crazy night, just have a lot of adventures and kind of start falling for each other. She said, I'd like you to write a book like that, but about a couple of nerds. And I said, okay, I can definitely do nerds. But where would a couple of nerdy kids go that's open all night and they could have crazy adventures? Because they're not going to go to a party or a rave or a nightclub or whatever. And then it hit me a place I am very familiar with, Comic-Con.
A library. Oh, Comic-Con.
Comic-Con, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That is so cool.
I have gone to the Archon Science Fiction Convention in Collinsville for
Oh,
over
that is
30
so cool.
years. Had a lot of crazy experiences there. And I thought, what would happen if a couple of kids who initially really didn't like each other got into a weird situation at a Comic-Con overnight? And my editor I could tell she was on the fence about it, but let me do it. And it really resonated with people familiar with the culture. So
tell us, do you have any con stories?
I remember one time I was about 20, and back then we were all broke, so we would share a hotel room with 10, 15 complete strangers. We would just all be on the floor, just crammed together. And one early morning, and I'm ashamed to say I was completely hungover, this one friend of my brother's friend, at like 7 a.m., he turns on the TV to watch cartoons, and I kind of just got up and cussed him out and said, turn that off now. Well, about a month later, I was substitute teaching, and he was in the class, and he recognized me.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, so you never know who you're gonna meet there, but because of that, I actually got to go to the Comic-Con in New York City, and which is probably the second biggest one of the United States after San Diego, and I took Sandy with me. It was just the amount of people there was just incredible.
Now, do you get dressed up when you go too?
I do that often. I didn't do it when we were flying. If you are familiar with Red Dwarf, I had a nice Rimmer costume I used to wear. But while we were in New York in the Sea of Humanity, I looked up and Sandy was gone, and I thought, she'll text me when she wants to get back together. And then I thought, except she asked me to hold her phone, and I have her phone and the hotel keys. I don't know what to do. I've lost my wife.
Oh my!
And
not intentionally,
but there were thousands of people in that room, and
my gosh!
And but I know my wife, so I went to the ladies' room, and ran into her there. But I thought, I don't know how I'm going to find her again.
Oh my!
Yeah.
Oh, that must have been so much fun.
It was so exciting. I got to meet really neat authors.
Like who?
I knew you were going to ask Sarvenas Tash. She is an Iranian-American author who she wrote the Pathetic Geek's Guide to Unrequited Love, which is another story at a con. Very, very funny stuff. I really enjoyed meeting her and some other people who just wrote about cons and nerd culture. I like to say, when I was in middle school, the word geek, that used to burn. But now it's a badge of honor. Now it's
who brought that about?
Well, I'd like to think we helped. Yeah.
Yeah, but also, the Big Bang Theory.
Exactly.
The Big Bang Theory made Sheldon wonderful. Sheldon is what made everybody happy to be a big geek.
You could really kind of see the wheels turning at that time. It was, hey, I'm not the only one who got that joke. If they make a joke like that, then other people get that. We're not alone.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. How do you? What makes cons so much fun to write about?
Well, they're kind of just anything goes type of situation. Nobody's going to say, why are you dressed like that? Why are you acting like that? God, you're what a nerd you are. Why would you think that's interesting? No, you can really, absolutely, truly be yourself there. In the book Anna and Zach, Anna's never been to a con when she gets roped into going to one with Zach to try to find her brother, and she's like, "Wow, this is definitely an experience." So,
what are some of the things that they get into?
Well, they're trying to find Anna's brother, who was run off from a school trip to go there, and Zach chases down somebody in a costume who he thinks is the brother, and it turns out to be a girl who doesn't know who the hell he is, and then her boyfriend, who's this huge Viking, starts chasing him the whole night. So that's just one of the many crazy situations they get into.
Now, and Anna and Zach, they fall in love? They don't fall in love?
They do fall in love. It's the opposites attract. Zach is a slacker who they're both on a Quiz Bowl tournament field trip. Anna's the captain of the team. With her brother's on the team. She takes this very serious. Zach is only on the team because he blew off an assignment, and the sponsor of the team forces him to be the alternative to make up for the credit. And when her brother runs away, Zach's the only one who she thinks could go get him back before they realize he's gone. And of course, it's just the enemies to lovers, opposites attract.
And does this one? I mean, earlier you had said most of your books don't end up happily ever after. So does this one?
That's the one exception, I think.
That's the one exception. Yeah. All right. Well, at least you've got one.
You crossed the line.
You crossed the line on that one.
Okay.
How do you feel about TikTok and book culture?
I think they're great. I'm turning 50 next week, and I don't really do TikTok, but all the authors who do that, I think, God bless them. Anything to get people reading.
So are you a big social media person or not so much?
I am old enough that I had a MySpace page at one time. And even older than that, I was on the BBS system back in the day. I do Facebook and Instagram. But every day it seems like there's a new thing. You got to be on this or that, and I'm like, I'm getting a little up there.
How do you market your books?
The bigger the publisher, the less marketing you have to do. So with books like Almost Perfect and Anna and Zach, I didn't have to do a lot. With my books from my smaller publisher, like Everyone Dies in the End, it was pretty much up to me. They said, we'll print it, but you promote it. So, a lot of YouTube, a lot of sending my book to book reviewers. Mm-hmm. It's whatever it takes. And that's why it's a lot harder to break out with a small press or if you're self-published.
Yeah, that is very true. It really is. So by day, you're handing out books. By night, you're writing them. Talk about the life on both sides of the library checkout desk.
It's a fun life, and I am just so lucky to be a school librarian. That is probably the most coveted position in a school, because I get to read to kids all day. I get to do fun experiments with kids. I get to read books in silly voices and dress up in costumes. And it has just been an absolute joy. I get to introduce kids to books.
Now, one of the things when I had decided I was going to be a teacher, one of the things I had said to people that talked to me about is I was not teaching anything shorter than me. Now I'm only 5'2", so you knew that I was not teaching elementary school.
Right.
Okay, I was just so why elementary school?
Well, a lot of people assume I'm a high school librarian because of the books I wrote, but when I was librarian at Rennick, that was a K-8 district, so I had some of the older kids, and I just, everybody has their level that they're good at. My wife is a middle school teacher, and God bless her, I cannot do it.
My husband was in middle school.
I salute anybody who teaches middle school or special education. They are a breed apart.
Yeah, middle school. Yeah, no, junior high, that's what he had, junior high. Oh my goodness gracious, no way. I like the high school kids because you can tell them, sit down, I don't want to hear it. Or there's the door. Don't let it hit you as you leave.
Exactly.
I love that. But the little ones, you don't say that to little ones. They start crying on you. Then what do you do?
Every day I have to say, get it out of your mouth. If I had to say one phrase I say most often, it's that.
Get it out of your mouth.
And you just, it's like any level. You learn how to talk to them. You learn how to control a class. I've seen,
Yes.
I say I teach kindergarten and people look at me in horror. How do you manage that?
Yes. No.
Yeah, I
no,
said at least
no.
they all speak English.
Yeah. Do your students know you write?
They do, but it's because they can't read my book. It's kind of a
A moot
vague
point.
thing. I could tell them I'm a
Yeah.
circus clown and they believe it.
What's a day like at your library?
Well, I'm at two different schools, two K through 2 buildings, and I teach a section of each grade at each school. I have the kids for 50 minutes. Recently they've really got me doing a lot of STEM work. I'm in charge of the computer lab and the library, so I have 4 different classrooms. I'm lucky I have a full-time aide in each building, or it could not happen. I do a lot of computer skills, a lot of science experiments. I mean, if you show a kid a small explosion, they will
Oh, they'll be
love
right.
you forever.
Yes.
I got so many neat toys. And then the rest of the hours, story time or library lessons. And actually, I'm not the one who checks out the books. The library aides do that, which
okay.
honestly I kind of miss. That was always
Because then you could watch what they're reading.
watch what they're reading
and talk to them about it.
Yeah, that's was a lot of fun. But
that's
just,
why I like being in the classroom with
Yeah.
the books,
Mm.
because I could talk to them about their books.
yeah.
What's your advice for young aspiring authors?
I'll always say just start writing now. So many people always talk about, I'm going to write a book one day. I'm going to write a book one day. But do you ever
Sit down
actually
and do
write
it.
that book? And when you're young, when you're a teenager or even earlier, nobody's going to care that your book is perfectly punctuated, perfect grammar. You just get the story down. You tell the story. And it's like playing a sport or playing a musical instrument. You're not going to start out great, but the more you do it, the better you get. And maybe by the time you're 20, you think, hey, I've got something I want to show to an agent or a publisher. So just do it.
Do it.
Take a couple hours every week and say, I'm gonna knock out a chapter this week. I'm gonna have half the book done by such and such date. Don't let it be one of those projects you just always thought you were going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. How has working with kids changed your writing?
I think it would change my writing more if I worked with the sort of kids I wrote about. People ask me, why don't you write children's books? I say, I don't have the personality to write a children's book. So it would be like, the monster under your bed is real, or mommy and daddy got a divorce because you were bad, something like something like that. So I think it's better. And I worry if I taught high school, I would start observing the kids and writing down funny things they said, and that would be kind of an invasion of privacy. So I think it's I work with the littles and I write about the olders.
Should school libraries stock more diverse narratives?
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, like when I was writing, when I was growing up, the 95% of the books I read that were assigned to me that were in the library were about white people. There would occasionally be a friend. White men for the most part, but there'd occasionally be a friend or a side character.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot remember reading a book about a person of color by a person of color, except maybe Langston Hughes. That was probably the one exception.
Right.
And the population of the United States is not 95% white.
No, it's
and
not.
When you go to the library and there are no books about people like you, you're not going to want to read as much.
No, you're not.
You want to go there and say, hey, that person on the cover looks like me, especially when you're a little kid. And if you're a white person, it's not going to hurt you to read about somebody who has experiences very different from yours.
Yeah. What role should authors play in activism today?
Well, it's a scary time for writers. There have been books in the Missouri legislature that says, librarian provides dirty books to the kids, they're going to jail. And who's to say what constitutes a dirty book, And some librarians start getting scared and start tearing pages out of books or yanking books out of the library.
Yeah.
And some authors will think, well, maybe I ought to go back to the sweetness and light and let's not rock the boat.
No.
We've got to talk about what's real, what's happening. I don't want politicians to say this is what the government is going to allow you to say. This is what you are allowed to read. The Constitution does not say that.
No. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, there's censorship does not belong.
It doesn't,
No.
but and yet here we are. It's one of those. I never thought I would live in an era where it was.
I never thought this country would ever be in that
Yeah.
place. I never did.
Yeah.
And yeah. Let's move on. So what's fueling your writing in your life these days?
Well, my daughter is just graduating from high school, so we're going to be empty nesters soon, and it's just
That's an exciting time.
that's an exciting and then frightening time.
Is she going off to college?
She
or
is. She's going to go to Warrensburg,
Okay.
a university of
Has she
Central
decided
Missouri.
on a major?
She wants to be a communications major, and I got to brag on her. She has started writing too, and I think she's a better writer than me. She really does the dystopian stuff very well. She will get into it. She will write
The
100 pages.
dystopian stuff.
Oh, yeah,
I
she-
love the dystopian stuff. The world is going to hell in a handbasket is always up my alley, and I don't know why.
Well, it's very popular stuff.
I've always loved it. The Hunger Games. I love the Hunger Games. I thought that was just. Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
Great stuff.
It is. It really is. What's your daughter writing?
Just a lot of very dark.
Has she published anything?
She has not, because she never finishes anything. She'll get about 150 pages in and say, I got another idea. I'll start writing that. And I say, you just please finish something. I'll show you how to write a query letter. I'll show you how to approach an agent.
Well, you know what? Have her make them short stories.
She's got her ideas are so big. She
Can't pare them down.
I never could write short stories are really, in my opinion, harder to write than a novel, because you got to develop characters and plot so much quicker. You don't have 50 pages to flush them out.
Because sometimes if she could take them and make them shorter and then put them in a collection.
Those are a hard sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if she could ever, we started on a book together actually, and it was kind of funny. I said,
how about you write a sentence, she writes a sentence?
Well, we did that. I write a chapter, she wrote a chapter, and it went really well. But then the whole project, we both kind of got distracted. But it was fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. How do you balance writing and life?
It's not always easy, but like I said, my family is very supportive. I'm a teacher, so I have summers off. I kind of an insomniac, so I can write at night, and it's like anything that's important. People who play music or play a sport, you make the time for it.
Yeah, you do. You really do. Now, you also have other books. I want to make sure that we mention some of the other ones as well. Let's see. We have the Almost Perfect one. Let's see. We also have Marley's Ghost. And we have Everyone Dies in the End. And then what's the other one that you have?
Deacon Locke Went to Prom.
Deacon Locke Went to Prom. Okay, so what's Marley's Ghost about?
It's not a horror story, as you may think. It is about a couple of cousins whose Uncle Marley died in a freak accident, and how they deal with that loss.
Okay. And then Everyone Dies in the End?
I read far too much H.P. Lovecraft in college, and that is a supernatural murder mystery set on the Mizzou campus.
That's hilarious. And then Deacon Locke Went to Prom. This is a hardback, too.
Yes, that's because it sold very poorly and was never released in paperback.
Really?
Yeah. I kind of blew the deadline of that one, and it never was promoted much.
Oh, okay. So, and what's this one about?
It is about a kid named Deacon Locke. He's a very awkward kid, It's about he asked his grandmother to go to prom with him.
Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to make sure we got them all in there. Okay. Yeah, you've got one, two, 3, 4, 5, 6 books here.
Yeah.
Wow, prolific.
I've probably have that many unpublished as well.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to be. So, what's your next one?
I'm writing a book. It's called. I actually just finished it. It's called The Yawning Balls of Yarn, and it
The
is
what?
The Yawning Balls of Yarn. I named it after a recurring nightmare I had in preschool. It's about a kid. He can turn back time once a day and only once a day. And one day he's getting bawled out by his mom, so he just turns back time so he doesn't have to get in trouble. But then an hour later, he gets word that his best friend was killed in a car accident, and he could have prevented it if he had waited a little longer, and that tortures him. So he kind of dedicates his life to try to prevent accidents like that, and
Oh
he
my
meets other
gosh.
kids who have unusual powers too, and they team up to try to do good.
Well, that's a cool story.
Thank you.
I like that. It's going to have a happy ending.
Yes.
Oh, finally.
Finally, yeah.
Finally. Okay, so what keeps you inspired to write?
It's like anything you're passionate about. It's like musicians, even if they don't have a recording contract, they keep playing their music. They keep doing whatever, and I just truly enjoy it. Even if I never was published again, I think I would
Keep writing.
I would keep writing. I would keep at it.
Okay, where do you see publishing going next?
If I knew that, I would probably have some more book deals. There's the big trend with books that aren't released in a physical medium. There's a lot more self-publishing. You can, especially with ebooks, you can do that for much cheaper now, and a lot of people are doing that. And it's just like anything, everybody's waiting for the next big idea.
What do you hope readers remember about you?
I hope they remember. I would like to think they could. I made them laugh, and that I maybe told a story that they enjoyed. That they could. I guess this. I hope readers remember me.
That readers remember you.
I've read so many books, and I know I've read them, but I look at them on my bookshelf, and I think I don't remember reading that at all.
Oh, I don't know. I think people. Yeah. I think that would be important to be remembered.
Yeah.
It's always important to be remembered. Yeah. Okay. Brian, thank you so much. Before we wrap up, let's see. If your daughter wrote a biography, about you, what would she title it?
Oh, that's a good question, and I'm going to have to ask her that tonight. Probably something like my father is the greatest, most perfect parent who ever lived. Something like that, who never embarrassed me and was never annoying or obnoxious.
I don't. Yeah. My son would probably want that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a wrap for today's episode of Author's Edge. A big thank you to Brian Katcher for joining us, YA author, librarian, the voice behind the powerful stories like Almost Perfect. If you missed any part of the show, you can catch Author's Edge every Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 7 a.m. on KWRH FM 929 and KXOK FM 1029. We're also streaming on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and TuneIn, or you can listen anytime at authorsedge.org on YouTube or SoundCloud. And guess what? Season 7 is starting soon with exciting guests like Janet Trombold and Robert Lowes joining us. Thanks for listening. And until then, keep writing, keep reading, and we'll see you around the inkwell.